talked about this in a prior conversation, which really sparked my interest in this, which was about the biophoton emissions. And I'm going off memory, but I believe you showed me an image of chickens.
Yes.
And these chickens, the free-range chickens, had a bright light.
Yes.
And the ones that were in like a slaughterhouse under terrible conditions had a very dim light, almost not visible at all.
That's correct.
What is creating the biophoton emissions? Is it just chemical reactions? And how do those chemical reactions work with our emotions? And why do they get brighter if we're in a pleasant situation and dimmer if we're in a traumatic one?
Exactly. That is the key question. And maybe to summarize what you were saying, that the pictures that I showed you, they go back to the work of Fritz Albert Popp. He's the German scientist, he's dead now, who has initiated a lot of the actual the modern biophoton research. He built the first photo multipliers, because you have to realize that the light that is emitted from the cells is very, very weak. You can't see it normally. But it's there if you use modern equipment that multiplies the photons and then makes it visible, so to speak, or can count its intensity. And they did this, that goes back a long time to Alexander Gurevich and other researchers from Russia. Back then, Russia was very, very connected with Germany. And that the idea that there is an electromagnetic emission from life, that is a long-standing observation. And Fritz Popp has made this into a scientifically measurable thing. And so what he found is that when you have a healthy cell, or when you have like eggs and then you take out the egg yolk and you put it into the photomultiplier, these cells, they still emit their biophoton emissions. You don't, as if they were alive. And if you take the yolk from an egg from a happy hen, it will emit much, much more light. And that was surprising. So not only that was surprising, but that was surprising in the sense that now you can use biophoton measurements from from living things or from foods and see, is it filled with light or is it very weak? So very sick cells, they don't emit much light. And that brings you also back to the question, what is actually that emission? Where does it come from? As you were saying, is it just chemistry? And because we know that chemical reactions from time to time give off a photon, but these would be very incoherent, diffuse emissions of light. By chance, you have one here, one you have there. But what Fritz Popp was measuring from the cell is coherent light. And so the question is, where in the cell does it come from? What can produce literally a tiny, tiny laser beam from the cell being emitted? This is not in the normal chemical paradigm of life. It's not there. It cannot be explained. That's why biophysics had to come in and explain those things. And nowadays, we realize that there is more than just chemical processes. There is physics processes, electromagnetic processes going on, even quantum physical processes inside the body that play a role. Of course, they go on because quantum physics is everywhere. But do they have a meaning? Do they have a function in life? And it turns out they do. And so what is being emitted is coherent light from the cells. And if the cell is active and the DNA, and it's actually emitted a lot from the DNA, but not only, because the DNA is such a highly ordered molecule, it can cohere those photons. But it's also emitted from microtubules. It's emitted from all other cellular membranes, cellular organelles, maybe even throughout the body. That's the idea of the wave genome, that there is a whole body light field in communication with the rest of the body that actually makes the super decisions of what to repair, what cells to rebuild, what cells to eject, so to speak, and build down. Nobody knows in chemistry, in biochemistry, why the cells know what they do. It's simply not understood. So biophotons give you an explanation for this. And the biophotons, they seem to be coming from a quantum physical domain of living cells and have a very important function of coordination, decision-making, an overall script of what the organism does so that it remains intact. That coherence that they express, in a sense, is also the coherence of the living entity, of the organism. And the more coherent you are in the more the communication between the organs, between the cells is functioning, the less friction, the less loss of energy, the more functional you can be as an organism, if you only look at it from the biophysical perspective. That, of course, then has a, let's say, its consequences in how you feel, what energy is available to you, how agile are you, both in your body as well as in your emotions and in your thinking. And that will impact upon other aspects of, because we were talking about aura, about what you emit and how you deal with life and with all the various, events in your life.
Would you say that the biophotons are the subtle layer of the aura, or is it something different?
Quite frankly, I would say they are not the subtle layer of the aura. They are the physically measurable layer of the aura. So if we look at aura, of course, it's a matter of definition. But if we look at aura, the biophoton emissions could be termed an aura. Every living entity has this biophoton emission. And if you look very carefully, or if you use modern technology like a photomultiplier, you can actually see it. And some people may have the eye to see that. Fritz Bopp himself said, if you put the human eye as it is into darkness for a while, it develops that sensitivity to actually see even photon emissions from living a plant or an animal or a human being. So we could train our eye to see it. That's why I believe biophotons is the more gross aspect of seeing the aura. But you can already read a lot. It is used also in biomedicine, where you're looking at, you might look at, is the emission, for example, of heart rate variability, of the, the voltage of the skin, all of these aspects, are they coherent? Are they well? And that gives you already some idea about the whole condition of the body. And so this is, in a sense, it is used. But the more subtle ones, I think they go to a form of aura where more of the breath, the rhythms of the body are included. And I refer to it as the epigenetic layer, or the water layer, or the fascia layer, or the breathing layer, the pranic layer. And that would be much more subtle than the biophoton. But of course, they overlap. So in a strong biophoton emission body, you would probably have a very good type of layer of the acupuncture system, and the whole breathing system is working well because it is a healthy electromagnetic basis for a more epikinetic and epigenetic basis. In the Indian Sanskrit traditions, in the Vedic traditions, you have 5 bodies. You have 5, they call it sheath, so layers. And this is exactly what they refer to. One is the more gross material one, and the next one is the prana maya kosha, which is the one that is made of breath, and you could almost say frequency of music. And then they have others, jnana maya kosha, where you have a body that is made of thoughts and emotions and memories. And then you go into even subtler regions of a sheath or layer around you, not maybe around you, but being you. But most of us are not even aware of the next layer. So I think the research that you're doing and the education that you're giving is extremely important to everybody to learn to appreciate and perceive and become aware of their own aura, their own light emissions, and perhaps from their breath emissions, their rhythmical emissions, musical emissions, their thought emissions. All of this, if you begin to realize that my health is not only the gross physical, but it is also in the aura, it is also in my memories, I think life changes a lot, and we become, more equipped in dealing with situations in our lives.
So it's keeping a record of memories of all the good and bad things that happen to us throughout the life. And do you speculate also past lives? I mean, is that going too far to say that maybe it's a record of all that?
Well, that then goes into, I would say yes. This is just much more difficult to speak about in any term of, modern science. The record of this life, however, is already recognized in science. It is called epigenetics. It is the idea that our genetic code, yes, it is there. You have it from your father and your mother and from your ancestors. But the way the genes are expressed, that's the term, what gene you are actually expressing, what you are not expressing, is determined by your experiences and your environment. And they put a little bit of a marker onto the genes. Like you have a positive experience or a negative experience. For example, you could have you are poisoned, or you fall in love, or you live in a healthy environment, or you live under stress. This puts markers onto your genetic code, interestingly. And these markers can nowadays be read and analyzed. So it's quite interesting that science has gone so far to read the timeline of a person in their epigenetic makeup. It's quite fascinating,
Wow.
totally fascinating.
It is.
So that is memories, and you might have forgotten it, but someone who has the technology and also the let's say the database of these markers, they would be able to say in your 15th year, you were in touch with, let's say, radioactivity and or certain situations. Or you can also read a lot about your food habits, eating habits, because all of this impacts how you breathe, how much, how little. all of this impacts. And then to go to past lives, I guess it would also filter into this more gross layer, but it would be coming from even more subtle layers, in my opinion. But they go along with us.
And those markers are also emotional distress as well?
Yes.
Is it how malleable is it to go and overwrite that? Can you go back and overwrite
Yes.
code?
Yes. That is an important question, or thought. It is malleable. So, of course, you have it there, but in a sense, maybe you don't overwrite it, but you overrule it by a more positive experience. And so you begin to express that gene again. I'm reminded of work that everybody, I'm sure, knows, Joe Dispenza's work. What he has done is looked at the hormone levels and certain neurotransmitters and measured them during and after meditation. And what they found, of course, they're like tryptophan and neurotransmitters that you produce, serotonin, during meditation, they are much stronger then. But what they also found is by simply looking intensely and focusing on the chemical formula of, for example, DMT, the spirit molecule, enhances the output of DMT in your brain. So it is so powerful to visualize even just the chemical formula of that, because there is a direct relationship between the chemical formula and the chemistry in your brain and that knowledge field, that information field about it outside. And that's why visualization works, but you really need to be very focused and visualize cleverly to clear and to overrule experiences that you don't want to be dominated by any longer.
So it's important to keep the mental slides or images in our mind, our thoughts, essentially focused on the things that we want.
Absolutely.
To create.
Yes. Yes. And in addition, fill this with your emotion. Because it's not just a thought, you know. You also have to believe it's true. You have to feel it. The things that are true is things that you feel. You can read about something, you can think about something, but something that is not real, you can also think about, you know. But once you feel it, once you accept its reality, you embrace it, and that is done by emotion. So you need to feel it too.
Do you think that our thoughts are generated in the brain, or that we are tuned into a signal? I believe it was Dr. Robert Epstein who has this theory called neural transduction theory. And the theory is that essentially that we're basically tuned into a frequency, and it explains a lot of things, like if somebody has like a psychotic break, or there's like a demonic possession, or you know, some rapid change in personality. It's almost like tuning into you're listening to a song, and you're driving along and the radio gets staticky and then starts picking up another station. Whereas his theory suggests that even with our modern technology, there's nowhere in the brain where we can locate thoughts or information that we've learned over time. So it's almost more like connecting to a cloud, and the information is in the cloud, and we have maybe our little area in the cloud, more so as the brain is the computer generating the thoughts. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I do. I don't know this particular author, but I would agree with the overall idea that it's not our brain that generates thoughts. No, I mean, we know that our thoughts they can come from our hearts. Don't we know that? We feel that. Or they can come even from further down or from higher up. So yes, I do think that the brain is more like an, if you will, an antenna and a filter a, that chooses. And that still needs to function, otherwise it's getting very, very confusing. But in a sense, it's actually a filter that limits the palette or the variety of possibilities of thoughts that are there in order for us to be functional here. Because what we are is the one who chooses. So that still is our responsibility, I think. But yes, I agree. And that's why the idea of a biofield, of an aura, of an energy body is exactly more related to an idea of where is mind? Where does it stop? Does it stop at all? It doesn't really, but because I can be at the end of the universe in my thoughts. And if I have the capacity to extend myself consciously into deeper and deeper regions or further and further spaces, then there is no difference from being, in my brain or thinking of my nose. There's no difference. Even though my nose is here, okay, I can look at it in a mirror, but my awareness is what makes the difference.
The people that can see auras, you could call them clairvoyants or people with extrasensory perceptions. Do you think that they have some biological feature that other people don't have, or are they tuned into a higher frequency, or maybe some of them believe that they could see it, but perhaps, they're just, I don't want to say making it up, but maybe some folks are, but maybe it's true for them. What do you think it is that allows some people to perceive those?
Well, I think all of this exists. I think there's people who believe they see it. And I think there is people who don't see and yet know. You don't need to see it. You can be clairaudient. You can be clairsentient also. And that is also information about what is going on. So what enables some people to see? There may be certain aspects of neurotransmitters in the brain that facilitate this, or certain, like I'm thinking of Uri Geller, for example, who is a known, visionary, mystic seer in a sense. And he seems to have a certain area in the brain that is unusual. And he also says that he was in touch with other intelligence that put a beam of light into his brain when he was a child. And this is where he has this unusual area in the brain, which a normal brain scan would probably identify as, oh, we have to look, you may have a tumor or something here. It's not usual. But so it's possible that in very good clairvoyant people, that they have a certain structure in the brain that helps them. And some people say that, but I believe that we all, and that's also shown through remote viewing and other technologies and techniques, we all have this ability. So we all have the fundamental equipment to perceive. And that's, in a sense, you could say that your biofield, your aura, is that organ of perception. It's that, we have eyes, a sense organ, or nose or ears, and we have that energy field with which we perceive. We can perceive what is behind us. And there's these children who can read books without their eyes. They are blindfolded and they can read texts. There is, I'm sure you've heard of the telepathy tapes of the research on autistic children. Mm-hmm. They communicate. They meet in other rooms in a different dimension and talk about what they are doing. So I think we are at a moment where a larger part of our society is being open to that reality, that we are at the cusp of a new horizon of perception. And of course, this comes with certain dangers and with a lot of confusion at the beginning until we navigate it.
You think that there's a catalyst for that, or it's just a time for humanity to awaken to that, or?
It may be both. So there is, we live in a cosmic time. It's not only what happens on this planet. We are maybe in a cosmic flow of time and evolution of the whole cosmos, where it is now time for this area to pick up more of its power and its insight. And the catalyst could be from the cosmos, therefore, or from the sun and from the stars, because we are connected to the stars. Or it could also be intentionally accelerated, both by human groups as well as by perhaps positive guardian groups that have an interest in us evolving. But if we look at the whole electromagnetic pollution in which we live, before we recorded, we were talking about this whole interference with 5G and electromagnetic waves and radio waves, and it's almost impossible as a sensitive person with a sensitive energy field to deal with all of these frequencies. And so this overload may actually trigger also a certain awakening. I'm not saying that this is well intended. It's actually probably not well intended, but hopefully, because we are forced to have to deal with this, hopefully we will find a good way of dealing with it and learn in the process, I have much more ability. I know in different ways. It also, of course, opens the gate to being manipulated. Especially if we don't have that understanding of our own energy field yet enough. So someone who has more understanding of it could manipulate our energy field.
If I'm understanding you right, you almost what was studied a little bit in the remote viewing experiments where energy is imprinted on other objects.
Yeah, that's what you read in text, even government documents, which was done, experiments that were done, and I'm sure are done today. But more automated. AI can help that as well, where you can code thoughts or information even onto an object and place that object into a room, and it will influence the people in the room with the thoughts that are programmed on it. And that they showed already in the 50s and 60s through remote viewing in Russia. And it can go so far that good remote viewers, they can almost, battle in a mind space, because you can actually go not physically, but in a remote perception of someone's energy field and insert thoughts and feelings into that energy field. And if this can be facilitated or automatized nowadays, maybe not as elegantly as these remote viewers would have done it, but in a more wholesale way over whole populations, like it was done by the Russians over Canada, for example, in the woodpecker experiments, where certain electromagnetic frequencies were sent out and people picked them up and became ill or lost their calm and composure. It's very well possible that this can also be used to influence us. We need to talk about the positive.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that we should stop working with our energy fields. On the contrary, it means that we have to take possession of our own energy field fully and learn more about it, and always pledge and aspire to work in the positive sense with it.
That's becoming aware of it. And what else can somebody do? You become aware of it, and what do you do with that awareness?
Well, that awareness will teach you it already will open other experiences for you. By becoming aware, you realize more and more is going around you. What our work then is to make sense of it and to analyze it and interpret it correctly, and not, become crazy because of too much perception, but again, integrate it and utilize it for the good of our own lives and for the good of other people's lives. What you can do with all of this and how can you actually develop that awareness? There's all these techniques there's breathing techniques, there's meditation techniques, there's color, there is what you are teaching is hypnosis and self-hypnosis. There is sound, is very profound in teaching yourself to become aware of the frequencies, the resonances. There's many, many ways. Spiritual texts can help because you begin to think not only about your job and your family life and your car or whatever, but you begin to think about eternities and holiness and great minds and great wisdom. That alone opens more awareness and perception.
So tuning into those, the beautiful things in life, the beautiful sounds, beautiful texts, the holy books, and in a sense, trying to, would you say, better yourself or elevate your consciousness to a higher degree?
Yeah, I would say so. It sounds a little bit perhaps old-fashioned, but these are eternal truths. We are here to improve ourselves, to learn more about the greater universe, and to get along with everything in the greater universe, to live in harmony and in peace with it. And we can only do this by more understanding and also understanding of ourselves.
Yeah, and it's very easy to get distracted from that, but you could tune into that instead of maybe the news cycle.
That's why a daily practice is good. Maybe we should also include, water, fresh water, the good food, being outside. So much research is done on mitochondria and light. And there again, you have the biophotons. You need that. You need to see the light. You need to see the full spectrum just to have the basic health. And from there, it will be easier to open to the energy body, to the light body, if you want to call it that. We were talking about the overload from electromagnetic frequencies around us. There is a knowledge about earthing, how the earth, which is negatively charged, slightly negatively charged, can ground you if you have too many thoughts, too many electromagnetic waves coming from you. If you have a cell tower in your area, it is important that you ground yourself by walking barefoot for a while on grass or on the ground, because it really will. Hugging trees is exactly that. It grounds it. The trees are grounded very well, and you can get charged with better electrons again by doing that.
So being in the sunlight, grounding, being in nature, these are all, obviously, you feel better.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You just feel good when you're outside in that type of environment. What type of technologies are being invented, cameras and detection devices to detect the aura? We talked about, I think it's a photo multiplier.
The photo multiplier is for the biophotons. That's, I guess, it's quite maybe no longer so expensive, but it was at Fritz Popp's time. It was difficult to build, and you have to have it all dark. You put the thing it's all dark inside, and then it measures the emission. And then, of course, you have the Kirlian photography that's been around for a while. There, that works differently. It's not biophotons. What you do is you generate a discharge, maybe from the finger or from an object. You can also use, physical objects. You generate a discharge. It's actually a plasma discharge. And then you see its intensity and maybe its structure. Sometimes there is areas where light is missing, and then they interpret as an indicator that something is perhaps hiding or covering the emissions there in your body. I'm not personally totally familiar with this, but this is how it works. It's a plasma discharge, which plasma in itself is quite something very interesting, actually. It's a little lightning flash that you produce around your electricity that you produce around your fingertip, and then a discharge will show. And that is imprinted then on a photo plate. And that is shown as the aura around your finger.
So I've gone to a shop, like a novelty spiritual shop. I'm not sure if I'm describing it in the right way, but they had a thing where you put your hand on a device and then they take a Polaroid.
Yeah.
So is that a gimmicky
that
thing,
is
or
a
is that what?
Kirlian photo?
Okay,
Yes.
so that's what you're
Exactly.
talking about.
It measures the electrical. It stimulates a little bit the skin, and then it measures the discharge from it, or records it. Doesn't even measure it. It just photographs it.
Mine always appears red, which I feel is bad, and the person tries to explain to me that it just means that passionate, but I feel like that it means maybe like distressed or annoyed or something like that. Because generally when I've done this, it's been very crowded, so it's just like it's kind of a tense environment. So maybe it was that, or maybe it's something else.
As I said, I haven't studied that so much, and I can only follow what people say about the meaning of the colors. I think we shouldn't go into too fixed of an idea that red is so basic and it's violent and it's and blue is you're all
Right.
I actually I don't like that so much because it's too fixated. It helps at the beginning, but I do think that we can become aware of nuances if we don't follow that so much. So you know best how you feel.
So do you think it's almost like dreams, where they say there's not one definition for a dream? You have to have your own interpretation of it.
Yep.
Water doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. Do you feel that it's the same in this regard?
Yeah, I would say so. You can take the element or the color as a guide, but it may not be only that interpretation. Yes, I would say so.
How does the electrostatic field differ from bioradiation?
Well, that discharge is as you apply an electrostatic field. When an electrostatic field, an engineer needs to explain this to you, but an electrostatic field has no current moving through it. It is just voltage, if that is the right word. While with electricity, you actually have the electrons, so to speak, communicating, running. There's actual electricity flowing. In an electrostatic field, you don't have electricity flowing.
And the idea, of course, is to have the electricity flowing freely, or not?
No, not necessarily. In organic, in biology, of course, you have electricity, like, for example, generated, flowing along the nerves, being generated by the chemistry of the nerves. But nowadays also shown that there may be electromagnetic communication in the myelin sheaths around the nerve cells and through microtubules and throughout the whole body, where we started our conversation with biophotons and electromagnetic radiation. If electricity flows freely, it might get too strong. You need to have a certain functioning dosage of the electricity signal through an organic body.
So is the idea is you want to get it as strong as possible, what you're saying?
No, I wouldn't say that. It's like standing in a lightning, being hit by lightning.
Uh-huh.
People are awakened by that, but it can also be too much.
I'm trying to put in the terms that I can understand. So a healthy flow of energy that's not doesn't exceed a certain capacity, more or less.
Exactly. Yes. That's why the body can be seen as a semiconductor, not a superconductor, but a semiconductor. And that's what you also have in your computers. If you shoot full-blown electricity through the computer, everything will fuse. So you need to have gates, open and close, so that only a certain portion goes through. Yes, you need to have a healthy electricity exchange and not an overload. And always electricity will come with magnetism. So electromagnetism, an electric field has a magnetic field associated with it and vice versa.
Can you just clarify that? So I had the magnetic field. Can you explain that a bit?
So there will always be a magnetic field. The cell has its own magnetic field. The brain has its own magnetic field. Where there is electrical activity, there will also be magnetic activity. And that you need to see embedded within the magnetic field of the Earth, which is embedded within the magnetic field of the Sun. And all of these rhythms are communicating. All of these domains are determining also the flow of electricity then.
So it's acting in a sense as a semiconductor having that magnetic field?
Yes. And so here on Earth, we have a certain electricity through our body. If we were on another planet, in another solar system, we would have a different amount, pathway, geometry of the electricity flow. You see? So we need to adapt perfectly, and that's what nature does for us. We are adapted to the electromagnetic field, the natural one of the Earth. That's why these artificial electromagnetic fields that are ubiquitous and never stop anymore nowadays, that's why they are so confusing to biology.
Because we think that that's sort of just a consequence of technology. Do you think that I guess what I'm asking is more of a sort of nefarious idea behind that it's intentional to use those frequencies and manipulate? Or do you think that that's just a natural flow of technology and people don't understand what you're saying?
Well, I think a large part is people don't understand what they're doing, like they're playing with fire. But I also think that there is a part that there's groups who do know that. And they choose certain frequencies. They could use other ones. If we had a science that was closer to the natural pulse and not one that simply thinks we know it and nature doesn't, then we would work with the natural distribution of frequencies much more. And we would look for that frequency that is beneficial and not simply do, and then have the consequence of overload and people getting sick and cancer from all the electromagnetic radiation. So unfortunately, I do think that there is groups who intend for us to be lowered, bogged down, confused, not coherent, overloaded with too much information that we don't even notice is information. It's just frequencies are overloading, and our ears don't hear them, our eyes don't see them because we are not sensitized to this, but the information still arrives. And something in us has to process this. And that's our biofield. And then the biofield is not there to process that which is benign, which is good, which is healthy, which is uplifting. Even our own creativity has no space anymore because we have to deal with all that influence. So I think that's quite unfortunate.
Being aware is so important, but it can be difficult, right? Because like you just mentioned, you don't see it. It's not something you could visibly see. So I guess just safely assume, maybe keep your phone at a distance when you're not using it, or, try to stand back from the computer, or, I'm not sure. It's take practical.
These are important practical steps. Switch off Wi-Fi at night. Even if your neighbor has it on, at least yours is not on. This is something you can do. Some people, they sleep in a room which is shielded. They have these curtains around, shielding curtains, and I suggest that.
Do you have any thoughts on Reiki or acupuncture? Those are helpful tools to help the body attune
Definitely.
energies.
Especially acupuncture is an ancient science connected to star systems. The Chinese had this, they knew each of the meridians is connected with the planets and with the stars. So channels plasma energies and is connected with the geometry of time and is something that can be used to open these flows and fit ourselves in a good way, in a harmonic and harmonious way into the greater cosmos around us. That's what acupuncture is. It understands that every organ responds to energies from the cosmos. Because the acupuncture lines don't stop at the body. We need to know that. They actually go out from the body. That's why they can respond to plasma from the stars. I study this and teach this book. It's called The Keys of Enoch.
Yeah.
It speaks of axiatonal lines, which are these extensions of the acupuncture lines. There's people doing healing with that.
So they extend beyond the body into the stars, as you put it.
Into the star systems, yes.
Stars.
And that, we don't feel it right now, and we are never taught about this. In the ancient times, in China, they knew about this. They were speaking of star people. And in all of the higher cultures, they were speaking of, you can call them the gods or the advanced intelligences from the stars. Everywhere in the Bible, it speaks about this. But we, of course, we think we are coming from the ape. Very sad origin compared to the ancient cultures that knew, no, we come from light. We come from the stars. So we are not aware of this now, but we could and we should become aware of this again much more and then re-establish a science of acupuncture and axiatonal. It's called axiatonal because there's sound, invisible sound, infrasound, ultrasound, that is working through these channels. And you can actually sing to your acupuncture meridians. Very, very powerful technique.
So when these channels are not connected or if they're blocked or there's something impeding them, you're basically being cut off from those star systems, essentially.
Very good observation. Exactly, that's it. And unfortunately, I guess most of humanity is currently cut off. That's what awakening means in the larger movement of the constellations, is that there is certain times, the new ages, the new dawn, that I don't want to go to, there's old books about that. I don't refer to that. But a dawn of a new era is because we come into a different alignment again, where if we grasp it, we can become aware of this and a direct communication can flow again. And we should grasp it now. It's coming. It's already approaching.
Wow, that's very powerful.
Yeah, it is. I think we're living at a very profound time.
Agree. You can feel it. It's palpable. I mean, something's happening for sure. We were talking about some ways to help sort of dispel the negativity from the energy field. We discussed that it is a real phenomenon, that negativity is recorded in this field. And so you had mentioned singing as a way, there's other natural ways, but you said, visualization and self-hypnosis, these are effective ways that people can help heal that field, also having good experiences as well.
Exactly. So that goes back to the feeling. So, of course, you first need to have the idea what you want and you focus on it. You have the thought, the visualization, but then you should feel it. You should imbue that visualization with very powerful, positive emotions. And if you can't generate them, then you don't believe it. You're not truthful. And it won't come like that. But when you go into that feeling, where you're free and where all is in a loving, benign embrace, which I believe it is ultimately, then this can emanate. So if some people just sit there in meditation and only feel love, that's already healing for not only themselves, but their own environment as well. So yes, I do think that negativity can be overcome. I think the power of the divine, the power of love, the power of peace, wisdom, they are infinitely stronger. The power of light is infinitely stronger than the power of darkness.
How important is the subconscious mind to accessing the subconscious mind? And how do you view the subconscious mind if you were to explain it simply?
Well, it's not probably, I can't explain it simply,
No,
but
it's
it's
not.
very much related to this. It's, for example, related to what we said about the emotions or the awareness. So the subconscious mind can block us from becoming aware of our own biofield. And so if we have subliminal programming that tells us, no, there is none, there is nothing, then we won't even look for it. So this overlaps, this whole, the subconscious mind overlaps with all of our discussion. And that's why to go into your subconscious, it's not something that is totally unknown. You can go there and know it and bring it and make it conscious. If you do this through breath, for example, again through sound, through music, I recommend the work of Gita Ben David. She is from Denmark. She sings The Note from Heaven. If people want to look this up, I can only so totally recommend this. She sings one note. It's your own note. And if you sing this for 15 minutes, for 45 minutes, something totally changes in you. And it clears your aura, it clears your biofield, and it may bring up subconscious elements, but then you can release them also. So it's all interconnected. It has a lot to do with the subconscious. If your subconscious dominates your feelings and you cannot feel positive, it won't come.
And the subconscious is the vast ocean of the mind. You know, it's conscious is a small fraction.
The conscious, yes.
Yeah.
The consciousness in itself, the super consciousness, of course, is the even larger ocean. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you think the subconscious links us all?
I just believe that of course, you can call it subconscious, that which you're not aware yet, but it's there. You can also see that beyond that is a super consciousness, and that is totally positive and totally liberating. I personally like to think about that. You know, if it depends on your definition of the subconscious, because there's a lot of Jungian and Freudian terms with it still and understanding with it. That would be, you know, suppressed consciousness. But there's super consciousness also that links us with everybody and everything.
And super consciousness is a state where yogis achieve? Is that?
Yes, yes. Where we are liberated, where we are creatively, co-creatively working together with the great minds of the universe and great hearts of the universe. Those who are in bodies of light, those who are higher intelligences. And I believe that we have this right and this calling to be in exchange with those. And first, of course, be in exchange with ourselves, with people like us here, and be in co-creative freedom and harmony. And then we might even encounter much larger minds.